the 2023 Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition and Festival. Good evening, I'm Buddy Bray, and welcome to already the last day of the semifinal round.
And I'm your co-host Daniel Xu, and we are back broadcasting live from Caruth Auditorium here in Dallas, Texas.
Now remember, you can see a list, a full schedule of the names and times for each competitor at cliburn.org, amongst a lot of other things you can do at cliburn.org. One of them is vote for your audience favorite. Find that audience award and click on it, vote for your favorite. Also, you can see every performance from this competition thus far archived on the Cliburn's YouTube channel. And if you want a little bit different experience, you can watch in 4K HDR with enhanced audio at hifi.com.
Don't forget to check out the rest of the Cliburn social media platforms to learn even more about the other competitors, the competition, the festival, and everything else going on here in Dallas.
And of course, the webcast is supported this year by our good friends at Texas Ballet Theater through a generous donation from Ann T. and Robert M. Bass.
You too can support the Cliburn broadcast and everything the Cliburn does to support classical music throughout the world.
Now, tonight, Daniel, the performances are going to be fairly brief because it's going to be one movement of the concerto that they have brought. They've brought the whole concerto, of course, but that will wait for the final round. In this round, each semifinalist will play just one movement of a concerto, and that doesn't always work out. I mean, it doesn't work out for some of the pieces we've chosen. We have Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini, for instance, and the LISZT E-flat concerto. Both don't have discrete movements, of course, so we've had to do a little picking and choosing of sections. First up, though, is going to be Jan Schulmeister, who yesterday played his semifinals recital. What do you remember about that?
I remember a wonderful, wonderful set of Rachmaninoff Moment Musical and just a wonderful performance all around, and I'm really excited to hear him take on SAINT-SAΕNS tonight. Is that right?
Yeah, at SAINT-SAΕNS he's going to play the scherzo movement, so fairly brief, 6-7 minutes, would you say?
Long. Yes.
Something like that, but full of pitfalls. There's lots that can happen in 6 and 7 minutes, right?
Right from the very beginning of that movement, you know, just the lightness of touch that's required, the lilt and the feeling. So I think he's going to do great. I think he's a great fit for the work.
So let's talk about that lightness a minute, because it's one thing to play lightly in a lesson or in your practice room. It is quite another to play leggero or lightly in a concert hall that seats 2,500 people. This is not a concert hall that seats 2,500 people. It's a concert hall that seats about 400. But if he advances and plays with the Dallas Symphony, that is a concert hall that seats 2,000. So how do you play lightly in a big room? How do you play pianissimo in a big room? It's different, right?
It is different. As the scale of the room changes, your approach to the instrument changes, and it just becomes a challenge of how do you project to the back of the hall so everyone at every floor can hear what you're playing, but still preserve the character and the tone that you want the piece to represent.
So that varies from hall to hall, I would imagine, and orchestra to orchestra, and piano to piano, exactly, right?
There's so many variables to control. That's why you gotta get in your pre-rehearsal time on the instrument, one of the many hazards of being a pianist.
Let's remind you a little bit about who Jan Schulmeister is. Take a look.
My name is Jan Schulmeister, and I'm from Czech Republic, and I'm 16 years old. I'm the 6th generation of musicians. My mom is a pianist at the conservatory, and she's at the same time my teacher. I practiced about 5 hours a day. In Czech Republic, we have a specific type of schools. So I have lessons through the whole day, and between that lessons I have a free time for practicing. Well, I'm looking just to enjoy it, to make wonderful music and to make new friends and so on.
That's Jan Schulmeister, shortly to take the stage here at Caruth Auditorium on the campus of Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Here he is. That's Jan Schulmeister starting out this last day of the semifinals with a performance of the second movement, that's Scherzo from Saint-Saëns Piano Concerto No. 2 in G minor with the Anastasia Markina Philharmonic at the second piano, doing a great job. Okay, Daniel, can you talk to us about coming out and starting with that movement? Because if you start with the whole thing, you get a little time.
You know, especially with this concerto, in the first movement, you get this really grand opening and it kind of expands and you feel comfortable. As the pianist coming out, you get to control it. But what you see here, having to start with such lightness, quickness, and Jan did great. And you know, it is in this competition with this pressure is a really commendable.
Right, right. You know, there are a couple of concertos like the Saint-Saëns Second that make you sound good right away. You know, the Saint-Saëns Second, because it starts with that low G and then a nice slow Bachian sort of introduction. You sound good.
Yeah.
So your nerves
You
get
feel good,
right.
too.
You feel good, so your nerves are sort of over with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tchaikovsky one is like that too in a way, because you just sound good right away with all those chords, right?
Big crashy chords.
And then later on it gets a little bit more involved. We're going to hear next from Zhonghua, 14 years old, from China, and he is bringing the LISZT E-flat concerto to this competition. That's one of the ones that really doesn't divide into movements all that terribly well, but he's going to start at the first slow part. All you piano nerds will know what we mean, the slow B major part. Here's another look at Zhonghua Wei.
I'm Zhonghua Wei. I'm 14 and I'm from Guangzhou, China. 我觉得很大一部分原因其实就是还是单纯的很喜欢弹琴，然后当然是有我的老师一直在给我很多有趣的作品。推荐我去通过外面的世界的不同的景物啊，比如说娱乐活动啊。能让我在钢琴里面找到更多的好玩的东西，然后就这样子一直下来。
That's 14-year-old Chinese pianist Zhonghua leaning into the virtuoso aspects of the Liszt E-flat concerto with great support there from Mikhail Berestnev playing the second piano. Up next, Sokyoung Hong from South Korea playing some of Rachmaninoff Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini, which you have played as well. He's going to start with the 18th variation, I am told, and go to the end. So the 18th variation, everybody knows, very, very pretty.
Great.
What can we look forward to later in the piece, though? What are the pitfalls there, do you think?
You know, I think there's a great build-up as it goes and sort of pacing yourself past this incredible, 18th variation and getting back into it, building towards the end, I think is really the stuff to watch out for.
Because, right, as you say, I mean, there's that great sort of emotional high of the 18th variation. Then all of a sudden we're back into...
Right back into it.
Into A major / minor land and things start going by quickly.
Yeah.
Again.
Definitely.
It's going to be Sokyoung Hong playing this for us. You might remember that he memorably played all of the Chopin Opus 25 etudes.
Which was
just
unbelievable.
Dazzling playing. Also a work called the Do-Re-Mi Variations in the semi-final round. He's going to be playing just that little excerpt of Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini. Here again is a little information about Sokyoung Hong.
I'm Sokyoung Hong, and I'm from South Korea. I'm a sophomore in a high school, and I'm 15 years old. I try to practice at least 4 hours. If I practice a lot, then I go like 10 or even more hours. My mom bought me an upright piano when I was like 5, and she taught me actually. I started to compose when I was about 8, and I still compose. My teacher recommended lots of competition, and I specifically chose this one because in the senior competition, the most newest 2 winners are both from South Korea.
15-year-old South Korean pianist Sokyoung Hong in this semi-final round performance of Rhapsody on a Theme by Paganini by Sergei Rachmaninoff, assisted by the brilliant Anastasia Markina playing the second piano. Okay, let's be piano nerds for a minute, because I want to know if those leaps, da, 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 are those as hard as they look?
For me, yes. For him, probably not. It's a lot of practice goes into it, a lot of work goes into it. On stage, in the moment, you might miss one or two. It's definitely one of those spots for me.
And then there are other treacherous places in the piece, which we didn't hear, and they, of course, would not be treacherous for Sokyoung, of course, but there is that F major variation, which seems to cause a lot of angst in pianists the world over. What is so hard about that one?
I think it's, I'm blanking on the.
It's a it's where everybody stops. You're in F major.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah, there's just a lot of notes, a lot of things to get through, and everyone stops, and you feel sort of bare and just by yourself, solo on the stage. And the rest of the work is surprisingly complex. The orchestral solo piano relationship is quite complex and perhaps a bit more complicated than some of his other concertos. That adds to the scariness and maybe some relief when you're alone doing that variation.
I think you've put your finger on a lot of stuff I want to dig down into, which is that F major variation. It is, I think, psychologically, I don't play the piece, but it is this psychological sort of terrain of, okay, the orchestra's out and I am alone.
Yeah.
But at some point they're going to come in, and I need to be in the right place when they do in this variation. And then also the other thing you said, which I think is so true in Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini, is that the interplay between the piano and orchestra is much more sophisticated, much more complicated than in the concerti where the piano is just far forward all the time. There is some interplay in the third concerto, of course, quite a bit in those variations in the third movement, but nothing like this, nothing like this level of sophistication. Even it looks that way on the page.
Yeah, this really feels like a conversation, an equal partnership. I mean, the orchestra and piano always should be on an equal footing here, but in this piece somehow specifically, the way that you have to be aware of exactly what the orchestra is doing more so than perhaps any other work that I can think of right now.
I think so too, and it's just a different experience. It's not piano with orchestra back here. It's not the hero with the orchestra. It's sort of the hero or heroine, not versus the orchestra, but coming together with the orchestra as well. Remember, you can see a list of names and the times they play with these competitors. Earlier in this round, of course, we heard Jan Schulmeister. He was the first to start us off in this round with that sort of jolly performance of the Scherzo of the Saint-Saëns number 2.
Right, a great way to kick off this semifinal concerto portion. Just really, really spirited and great, brilliant lines coming from him, and really a wonderful performance.
What do you, as you've said, you played this piece as well. Is it a piece that lies under the hands? Does it feel good to play it in a totality, the piece?
I think so. It feels right. It feels comfortable. Does the tone? It feels comfortable enough that you can focus on the tone. You can focus on the lightness and the character. Some other pieces, you never really get past trying to feel comfortable. Well, I don't know about these kids. I'm pretty sure these kids can do anything.
Yeah,
but
they seem to be able to do anything. Zhonghua was next with the second portion on to the end of the Liszt E-flat concerto, really leaning into the virtuosity of the piece, and of course he accomplishes that so well. He is a no-nonsense performer as well. He is
absolutely
direct. There is no artifice to his playing. Very honest performer, I think. There he is in the LISZT flat. That looks to be the third movement. I
Yeah,
think
the
the
seal that is
triangle
flying through the
movement of the
right
LISZT
through the keyboard.
E flat. Remember again, you can see a full list of the competitors at cliburn.org. You can see every performance from this competition on the Cliburn's YouTube channel. And if you want a little bit different experience, you can watch it in 4K HDR with enhanced audio on hifi.com.
Don't forget to check out the rest of the Cliburn social media platforms to get a behind-the-scenes look at the competitors, the repertoire, and the competition.
Now, the audience here is at an intermission, so it's a great time to shop the gift shop. The thing I was looking at the gift shop today was the Frisbee. Have you seen the Frisbee?
I have not seen the Frisbee.
Kind of a light blue color. It looks like it's a good Frisbee. And with the Cliburn logo on the back, it's a good Frisbee. I think
Very cool. I've been looking at the fanny pack.
Oh, yeah?
I'm told that's new.
Yeah,
The
it
little
is.
carry. I don't know if it's fanny pack. I don't know.
It is.
I don't know what
That's
the
what
kids
she
call
called
it.
it. That's what Mary Elizabeth called it when she was on the webcast.
Oh.
So I think that is the official name.
Cool.
So I think we're going to get our employee discount on the fanny pack and and the Frisbee if we want one. So you can also shop the Cliburn gift shop by scanning that QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to shop.cliburn.org. Now, straight ahead in this intermission segment, we are going to finally get a chance to talk to our jury chair, who is the esteemed Canadian pianist Janina Fiolkowska. But first, we're going to take a bird's eye view of this whole competition and festival with Cliburn President and CEO Jacques Marquis. Take a look.
I'm Jacques Marquis. I'm the President and CEO of the Cliburn. And we're here today at Caruth Auditorium on the campus of SMU in Dallas for the beginning of the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition and Festival. One of the key things of this junior competition is they are between 13 and 17 years old, and we want this to be a learning journey for them. We're here in the Caruth Auditorium where we'll have the first 3 rounds of the competition. It's a great hall, perfect for recital. They will all play on this very nice Steinway D. The jury will be here, and we have 9 members of the jury coming from all over the world. And from round to round, they will decide who they want to listen again in the next round. The system is very simple. It's a yes-no process without deliberation and discussion. We have the practice rooms, and you can hear some of them practicing already. Like I said before, they practice a lot, and they've been practicing a lot. To prepare for a competition of that level, they have to practice. Piano is a very solo instrument, and they come here and we bring them together as a Cliburn camp. They will leave with friendships, new knowledge, new ideas, and we'll see how they can blossom through that. The competition itself is not a finality. We're trying to not close any windows, we try to open them all.
Just a little of what you can expect from our friends at Texas Ballet Theater, starting the season with Ben Stevenson's Dracula, of which there are great big chunks of Totentanz.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. We are so happy to have you, Janina Fiolkowska, join us. Finally, we have been anticipating your arrival
Oh, sure.
to the webcast.
Okay. All right.
What's it like listening to all these
It's scary. It's
amazing-
quite scary, let me tell you. These 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that are coming and playing. I mean, technically, to die for, you know, one wishes. But anyway, no, they're wonderful. This is my first time judging kids. All the competitions I've judged before are sort of young adults, and they're supposed to be finished. And then there's some of these kids that come along, and my God, they're wonderful.
So what is the difference, do you think? How has your experience been different judging a 14-year-old from a 24-year-old?
Well, actually, even a 14-year-old to a 17-year-old, there's a big jump. You know, the 14-year-old, you're not always sure you're hearing the 14-year-old, but you might be hearing their teacher. And if you're try to be a good juror, you try to pierce through that and see what is the potential there. Now, the 14-year-olds we're hearing here have all the technical abilities of the world. It's what they do with it that's important. And some of them are a bit childish, which they should be. They shouldn't be too adult. But, you know, it's interesting to then really listen, and sometimes there's a little turn of phrase that you know comes only from their heart and not from the teacher saying, do that, do that, do that. And that's this difference. The grown-ups, the older kids, of course, that's all them, you know.
The grown-ups of 21 or 22.
Exactly. But God, in my day, you were sort of only starting when you were 30. And now you're finished at 16.
One of our most beloved members of the Cliburn family was Joseph Kallichstein, who was on the jury a few different times. And I remember him saying once in 2005, just after Joyce Young had played the Prokofiev second, he said, "Wow, how can a kid do that?" And she was 19, you know. When I was 19, we did things like play wrong notes and things like that. And how can a kid do that? I could never do that. You know,
well, I don't believe that. Because he was a wonderful pianist. But I get his point very, very clearly. Everything now is young, and kids are pushed to do things that maybe they shouldn't always be pushed to do.
What is the difference, do you think? Because we see this also in the Van Cliburn International Piano Competition for grown-ups, you know, that every 4 years the level is appreciably higher. Every 4 years, it's like evolution or something.
In a way. But for example, think about it. You've never had a winner like Radu Lupu, and that's 40 years ago or whatever. No, the difference is that kids are forced to play cleaner, faster, and more accurately than in my day, for example. Why? Because first of all, the advent of the CD, but then everything you do from the age of 2 years old finds its way onto the internet. So you have to be perfect. So that's maybe what the focus is much more on now than on just actual development of character and soul and everything else. So there are many, like 300% more really good pianists out there, and young ones too. But there's still only like a tiny percent that are really exceptional, and that's what we're looking for. And sometimes you don't find them. You can go out, I can judge 6 competitions in a row and hear a great pianist, but no one truly exceptional. But I think we have a couple here. So
that's good to know.
Yes.
You were saying a little earlier about just that turn of phrase that makes you really look up, that makes you pay attention. Something that a kid does that cannot possibly be taught.
Exactly.
And that's
Or that
when your
actually,
ears really, that's when a person really perks up and
there are
starts to
some
listen,
here
I
perks
think.
up, or else who actually brings tears to your eyes. And that's the whole
And you've had that experience
I've
too.
had that experience here. And that's the whole point. Why else do we play the piano? You know, after a while, if you just hear people playing a lot of notes very well, it doesn't do anything for you. But if you hear that one little phrase or that one special note that brings you closer to the composer, it's not the pianist. If they can bring you closer to the composer, then they're winners.
When I hear something like that, though, for me it also makes me optimistic about the future of this art and the future of playing the piano in public, that it will continue to be relevant if something of such beauty can be captured on the stage.
Absolutely.
It's been great to talk to you. What I like about you is that you are always 100% honest, and you were even 100% honest in this book of yours that I really like. So now that I have you captive, I want you to sign my book. Because
really, on the air?
Yes, right, on the air. Because
Serious?
I've loved this book. It's called A Note in Time, And I meant to take 2 days to read it, but I didn't take 2 days to read it. I took 1 day to read it. I just kept
You're
reading.
kidding.
No, I just kept reading and reading and reading. It was so compelling to read. And one thing that I have always found sort of compelling about you and your playing is its honesty and its transparency. And everything is in this book. There's so much action. There's so much sort of suspense in so many different ways. There's even a plane crash in the book. There's everything in this book. It's just a magnificent.
It is true. It is
But
true.
yeah. And I think that's what's so appealing about your playing as well. It's direct. It speaks.
Wrong notes and all.
Wrong notes and all. Yes. Well, you've never played any wrong notes.
Never.
Before, have
No,
you?
never.
I didn't think so.
Never. No.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
signing my book on the air. I didn't tell her she was going to have to do that. Okay, all right. We want to talk a little bit about the arts in Texas. Here's a little tour just to show you what's up with the arts in Texas.
Whenever I travel to new places, the first thing I start with is the art. What's the art scene like here in Dallas?
Thriving. There's music and visual art and theater and dance. A lot of it's right here in the Dallas Arts District.
I've been noticing a lot of the architecture out here is incredible.
We have 4 arts buildings, each designed by a different Pritzker Prize-winning architect, all right here in the Arts District. Dallas thinks big. Dallas is a bold, new city. There's a spirit of innovation that's happening in the art scene in Dallas right now that is so incredibly exciting. It's not just football and barbecue. Dallas is a world-class, innovative art city.
Our next competitor here at the last day of the semifinals is Yifan Wu, 14-year-old pianist from China who was spellbinding, I thought, Daniel, last night in a program of Barber and Brahms, the Barber Sonata. It was just an amazing performance. And then also the second book of Brahms' Paganini, which, if you don't know the piece, it did not look effortful for him at all, and he was doing the most difficult things on the piano, and it did not look effortful. He's totally involved in what he's doing,
Absolutely.
but it's not taxing for him.
Not for him. I mean, and I think what's so cool and interesting about this is that's how it should be. The technique should serve the music and not the other way around, and I think that he did a really wonderful job of kind of fading the technique into the background, focusing on the music.
He also started with a beautiful Couperin harpsichord piece, which was so cool to hear here. I mean, Couperin has sort of been rediscovered. Grigory Sokolov, I think, has sort of led the charge with Couperin played on the piano, but he made it sound good on the piano. He made the ornaments sound good on the piano, which can sound a little bit intrusive. In just a minute or so, I want to talk about the Chopin E minor concerto, which is the concerto that he has brought to the Cliburn this year. What do you think about the Chopin E minor concerto as a choice for the finals? That it has to go up against Liszt and Rachmaninoff and so forth.
You know, I would say it's relatively unpopular, but probably a really good choice for him. I think there's such beauty and emotion in it, and I feel like, not that the Liszt and the Rachmaninoff don't bring this to the table, and there's plenty of brilliance still in the Chopin, but I think he's going to get to show a slightly different side in the finals that perhaps some of the other competitors won't be able to.
Here's a little look at Yifan Wu, in case you don't remember him.
I'm Yifan Wu. I'm 14 years old. I come from Shanghai, China. I really like sports, table tennis, badminton, and cycling. I studied Finalists for 3 years. 3 years, yeah. And I want to challenge.
Yifan Wu, 14 years old from China, just giving that great, really brilliant performance of the last movement of the Chopin E minor concerto. So Daniel, if he makes it to the finals, he will probably have the most substantial piece in terms of length.
Yep.
Of any of them, because the Chopin E minor, do you do it?
I do.
So it's
a lot.
45 minutes, 50 minutes. How long is it?
You know,
how long does it feel?
Well, you know, it feels like it takes a while to get through. I don't know the exact timing in my head.
It's longer though than
it's
Rhapsody on the
lengthy.
theme of Paganini, and it's longer than
It tells a
LISZT
good
flat.
story.
It tells a good story.
Enough to get through one.
Sure, and it's longer than the LISZT flat, which clocks in at about 20 minutes,
Yep.
right? Longer than the Saint-SAENS number 2.
Yep.
Speaking of Saint-SAENS 2, we've got another performance of the Scherzo from Saint-SAENS 2 coming up, courtesy of Motan Oyama,
Yes.
who played Petrushka last night. It was the
Yes.
last to play, I guess.
He was.
Does that seem right?
Yes. And it was a wonderfully lively, engaging performance, and I think that's where he really shines, is just grabbing the audience's attention, grabbing the listeners, and really charming them with this. So I think this is a great piece choice for him, and I'm really excited to hear it.
We've noticed throughout the rounds of this competition that he really responds to something that is rhythmically infectious. And we are theorizing, of course, it's a very easy theory, that it comes from his early ballet
You
training.
don't say.
Yes. This early ballet training and the sustained ballet training that he said he still does this. So
Which is incredible.
He likes
really
it.
incredible.
Motan Oyama, he likes a good beat. And we saw that in Petrushka last night. Here's a little bit more about 17-year-old Japanese pianist Motan Oyama.
My name is Modan Oyama. I'm from Japan. I'm 70 years old.「幼稚園の頃に、先生が、ピアノをしていて、で弾いていて、その、ピアノを、聴いて、自分でなんかこういうのをやってみたいなと思って始めました。曲に乗りながら弾いたり、踊ったり。
Motan Oyama, 17-year-old Japanese pianist, playing the second movement, the Scherzo, from the Piano Concerto No. 2 by Camille Saint-Saëns. One of your specialties, right?
The last concerto I played
Really?
before coming here, right?
Wow, wow. So what does it feel like to play that Scherzo? Just what does it feel like?
It took time to get there, but it's fun. It's just so much fun. And getting to, you know, when you go in, it's funny because when you go into the conductor's rehearsal, this is the movement that they're thinking about it. They're figuring, how are we going to follow you? How are we going to get the feeling right? How are we going to... Once you get past all of that, it's just so much fun. And there's so much joy in it. And of course, getting right into the last movement, which we're not hearing today, unfortunately, but getting into the storm of the last movement right afterwards is fun. I don't think I've ever performed this concerto without getting a laugh out of the audience, ending the second movement with the two chimes.
Yeah, that's sort of built in, of course.
Yeah.
Let's talk just for a minute about the average number of orchestra rehearsals when you get to a town. How much rehearsal time do you get? That might be interesting for people to know.
You know, it'll vary between, I would say, typically 1 to 2. I would say 2 is the norm. You get one kind of a getting to know you, and then a second, we know you, let's get everything together in place for the concert.
But those are not 2 full orchestra rehearsals that you get. It's maybe half of an orchestra rehearsal, or do you get the full thing?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. You get, you know, usually you get an hour in the first rehearsal and then maybe as a run through in the second. So there's not a lot of time to put all the pieces together into gel.
So let's underline that for just a second. Like an hour in one rehearsal, and then a run through maybe the day of. It's usually dress rehearsal.
That's right.
That's not a lot of time. That is
not really.
not a lot of time to acclimate to a new conductor in a new city, a new piano. We're going now to Zihan Jin, the 14-year-old pianist from China, who will end this semifinal round with a sequence of sections from the LISZT E-flat Concerto. Here's a little more about Zihan Jin.
My name is Zihan Jin, and I'm from China. I'm 14 years old. 我是4岁开始学钢琴，然后那个时候是我爸爸先带我启蒙的。当时呢，我们就是一起听很多音乐，然后一起探讨这个音乐。我最喜欢的作曲家是肖邦，因为呢，他的作品非常的富有诗意，非常的好听。
That's 14-year-old Chinese pianist Zihan Jin bringing these semi-final performances at the 2023 Cliburn Junior to a close. He did that with the LISZT E-flat Concerto. Good competition piece, don't you think?
Great. Lots of fun moments, lots of great flashes of brilliance, and just enough emotion, just enough story to kind of carry you through.
I think so too. I mean, it has a story. It's just a condensed story, right? And it has everything else besides. It has what everybody
Excitement
wants.
and fire.
LISZT knew what everybody wanted, I think. Zihan Jin, one of three 14-year-old Chinese pianists, the other Zhonghua and Yifan Wu. And we've also heard tonight from Sokyoung Hong, the 15-year-old pianist from South Korea, 16-year-old John Schulmeister from Czechia, and 17-year-old Motan Oyama from Japan, bringing this round of the Cliburn to a close. All right, we are going to be with you now for several minutes. I'm Buddy Bray.
I'm Daniel Shu, and yeah, it's been a great round, hasn't it?
It really has. Remember, you can see a list of names of all competitors in the repertoire they have played here at Cliburn.org. You can also at Cliburn.org vote for your personal favorite as an audience member. You can find how to do that on Cliburn.org. You can listen to every performance from this competition so far on the Cliburn's YouTube channel. And you can also do that at hifi.com for a little bit different listening experience. That'll be an experience where you're watching in 4K HDR and listening in enhanced audio. That's at hifi.com.
Don't forget to check out the rest of the Cliburn social media platforms for a behind-the-scenes look at everything about the competition and the competitors.
And this webcast, of course, sponsored this year by Texas Ballet Theater through a generous donation from Ann T. and Robert M. Bass. The jury is now voting for our finalists. You might think that takes a long time, but usually it doesn't. Here at the Cliburn, the finalist announcements will be coming up. Daniel and I will be with you until that time. Straight ahead in this segment of the webcast, we'll be hearing from the guest conductor in the finals round. She is 40-year-old Valentina Pileggi, the conductor and music director of the Richmond Symphony in Virginia. But first, we thought you'd like to hear from our friends Greg Anderson and Liz Rowe. This is a performance they recorded last year at the Van Cliburn International Piano Competition, featuring the music of Leonard Bernstein. Here are Greg and Liz. Greg Anderson and Liz Rowe are two of the most beloved pianists performing today, and I am sitting with a third. He is John Kumura Parker, a professor of piano at Rice University and a really, really great pianist. If you've never heard him, you are really missing out. Comes from a musical family. We'll get to that in just a minute. Jackie,
hey,
welcome.
It's great to see you, buddy.
It is good for you.
It's
great.
so fantastic to be here at Cliburn. And you know, I was on the jury 8 years ago of the first Cliburn Junior. And to be able to just sit back and listen to all this talent and not have to vote.
Right.
is really nice, I have to say.
Let's talk about being a juror at something like this, because something I've asked a lot of people is, do you listen differently to a 13-year-old than you do to a 23-year-old? Are your expectations any different? What are you listening for?
Well, in a certain sense, you're always listening for potential with younger players, as well as realized potential, right? But you know, you hear an incredible young player and you say to yourself, okay, they've worked hard, they've been taught well. How much of the music that I'm hearing is that the beginning of an innate musical personality, and how much of it is taught, right? And how much of it is happening by rote, and how much of it is, oh my goodness, there is a young artist there just bursting at the seams, and there's just all that they're going to be doing. So I think when they're younger, part of it is listening for the potential. You know, you hear. I mean, the technical ability of all of them is just humbling for all of us, right?
It really
it's
is.
just it's staggering, and it looks very easy. And you and Daniel have spoken about that. It looks, you know, they're making things look easy that for us would be difficult. But you know, we've been through a stage of tremendous facility, but it's so much more that you want them to do, and that they are doing, and that we're listening for.
So let's go back. I want to go back to something you said, which was that turn of phrase, that certain something that cannot be taught.
Right.
So do you know that when you hear it, or do you have to suss it out?
A lot of the times you know it because you've suddenly stopped fidgeting mentally. You know, like you're. You know, the music's happening, and you might even be analyzing it, right? Like you might be saying, "Oh, gee, that's a nice turn of phrase," or "Oh, they seem to have good control of the voicing," and suddenly you're like, and you're listening, you know, and then you realize, okay, they got me, right? And I think that is very hard to teach. I think that comes from, you know, an inner need to communicate, and you know it when you hear it, right? Yeah.
Do you think you listen differently now that you are a teacher yourself than you did before?
Yeah, I listen a little more analytically. I can't help it, you know, like, oh, I know what I would say, you know, that kind of thing, you know. But I still want to be moved, and I want to be taken out of that ability to be analytical. And you know, it happens a lot in competitions that if you're on a jury and you're listening to 24 people play, in a certain way, you have to look for reasons that somebody isn't going to make it to the next round. I mean, that's just kind of the law of mathematics. You have almost no choice. But as you get further into the competition, and by the time you get down to 6 or down to 3, you're actually just looking to be moved. You know, I mean, you don't think anymore about all those, you know, maybe slightly petty details that we all know and love so much. You know, all that piano nerd stuff you've been talking about. You don't listen to that anymore. You're just like, oh yeah, that's it.
So that's the good stuff. When we get there, we're really relaxing a little bit. Do you think that you are? When you're listening to kids of this age, you referenced it a moment ago, and now that you are a teacher yourself of some years, do you think you hear the potential? Do you think you can extrapolate the potential? Here's what it is, here's what it's likely to be in 5 years.
Yeah, a lot of the time I can. I mean, I'm sure I'm not always right, but I
of course you're always right.
Thanks, buddy.
You're always right.
But I know when I hear that special kind of potential, that artistic voice, if a whole lot of things continue to line up. If they're getting great teaching, if they're getting great support, if they're, you know, if they need financial support to be able to study, if they're getting that, if all those things line up, then you say to yourself, yeah, that person could be still performing 30, 40 years from now and really making a difference, you know. But of course, sometimes those things don't all line up either. You know, you'll hear a fabulously gifted person, and either they don't have the right teaching, or they don't have the right opportunities, or they decide they're not they don't want to perform. You know, they want to do something different with their musical talent. That happens too.
There are so many variables, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Finding the right teacher,
right.
having the right opportunities, sometimes that's out of our control.
Right, and obviously with the astoundingly gifted young pianists that Cliburn Jr. has drawn here, you know, they have worked so hard. They have had great teaching. They have had incredible, you know, family support, you know, to be able to get to this level. It's impossible otherwise. I mean, just the amount of work they've put in. You know, they do make it look easy, and that natural talent is
really,
there, right?
But certainly do.
It's not so easy.
Okay, let's switch gears just a little bit, because you did an artist talk with some festival participants and also with competitors. What'd you tell them?
Oh, it was great. You know, we talked about, well, one of the things I told them was, you don't have to be perfect. You know, you have to be fantastic, I think, you know. But if
fantastic, but not perfect.
Yeah, but if you're going to get to the next round, but you don't have to be perfect. Before I became artistic director of the Honen's competition, I was on the jury in 2012. The eventual gold medal laureate at Honen's, Pavel Kolesnikov, had what really looked like a fatal memory slip in his semifinal solo round. He got out of it, and he finished in a blaze of glory. I remember looking around at the jury, my fellow jury members, and of course we weren't allowed to talk, you know, about anything, but boy, you know, that didn't affect me, but I hope it doesn't affect them. And he went on to win. And you know, so that was one of the messages I had. And then I talked a little bit about my growth as a teenager going into my 20s, and how I had a lot of natural talent as a teenager, but there was such a lack of discipline and sophistication in my playing. And how when I finally got to that point, you know, where I'm going to really work on this and work, and then I felt like some of the excitement of my playing, you know, got dulled a little bit, and I felt like I was in a box and my playing got a bit boring. And then how I kind of grew out of that, and immediately hands were going up and questions, and oh, so what did you do, and you know, how did you get to that next phase? And it was incredibly exciting.
That connected.
Yeah, that really did connect, and it was so interesting.
It's funny how the minute you become dead honest like that, the hands start to shoot up.
Absolutely.
Because then we're connecting on a human level. Jackie, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, buddy,
for being with us. The always shy and retiring John Kimura Parker has been gracious enough to come visit with us. A masterclass tomorrow?
Masterclass tomorrow, and then I'm actually going to be attending the rehearsals of the 3 finalists with the Dallas Symphony, with Valentina. I'm basically helping a little, I'm going to try not to get in their way, but just a little bit coaching them through that concerto experience, because these, you know, these players are so young. Many of them have had almost no experience working with orchestra. Right. That's going to be interesting.
That'll be nice, and a friendly face to have there. That'll be great. Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, buddy.
We're going to let you take a look around the other arts in Texas. Have a look at this.
I guess every town has a flavor all its own. But this one seems to have more than most. Perched on the edge of the prairie, where it can never lose sight of its past and can see the future forever. Fort Worth, Texas, the unexpected city.
As I've said over and over on the webcast, one of the very best things about producing a piano competition is expanding the reach of our Cliburn family. We're doing it again this year by inviting a new conductor to us and to the area. She is Valentina Peleggi, who will be conducting the finals on Saturday with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and 3 finalists yet to be determined. Welcome, Valentina. We're so happy to have you
I'm
here.
so happy to be here.
Now, today you've already done a master class with some festival participants, was that right?
Yes.
What was that about?
It was great. You know, it was the first approach for these such talented young artists. I cannot even say kids, but they're so small, but they're just I don't know. It's amazing, and their energy and their enthusiasm. You know, it's and the way they share this passion for music with other musicians that they've never seen, and it's really contagious. It's inspiring.
That is the thing I think that is the best about what we are doing here, is that these kids come and they are with other kids from all around the world who share that passion, who also practice for 8 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
So they've found their people.
Yeah,
here in Dallas,
and especially
Texas.
after 3 years of COVID isolation, then finally they can be with playing with other people and with other pals. It's really, you see they're smiling, and it's beautiful.
So what was it a master class about? What were you doing in the master
We
class
worked on Chopin Piano Concerto 1 and 2, and so we went through with an ensemble. So it was a reduction for strings, so it was more intimate setting, a bit less scary, less intimidating, but it was a way to start exploring how it is the dynamics, right? The dynamics between a soloist and an ensemble,
right?
And the conductor.
And
so
a
how to put
conductor,
everything
right.
together and how to still express your musicality, but sharing with other people and bringing everybody on board. So it's kind of connecting how,
that is a beautiful, and it's so essential to learn, and it's such a gift, I think, for 13 and 14-year-olds to be able to learn that, because if they get in the big world in this business, they'll have to know that they're only going to have an hour, that hour it will go by very quickly, and then the next day maybe there'll be a run through of the piece, but it'll be pretty quick.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So this is why it was so precious, and all these opportunities that are offered, they can really, I mean, they're life-changing. You know, sometimes you really need this kind of safe environment where you can try things. It's a luxury to be able to try something when you feel still supported but safe.
And speaking of time constraints, there will be time constraints tomorrow when you rehearse with the orchestra, and everything will have to be done in a set frame of time. Of course, we have the wonderful Dallas Symphony Orchestra that will be a constant. But for the young artists, this might be a new experience to have it happen so fast.
Yes, and to be prepared to just on the spot and know, where. That's why it's so important, I think, to meet up with, this kind of, which is actually professional meeting between conductor and soloist, having some time together just to organize things before actually walking on stage.
And then for you personally, I mean, it is. You'll also have to have intense focus to bring that off. But I'm reading about you that you've done so much opera in your career already, and I'm just thinking, if a person can do opera, then really, I mean, that is coming up the hard way. I think that is always baptism by fire. Opera is really the hardest thing to do, I think, to bring all that together than a piano concerto is really nothing.
there are a lot of similarities actually with the opera world. Well, the fact that sometimes also you have changes and different casts, and you have to be flexible and react on the moment and be ready to whatever happens and try to anticipate it. But that's the beauty of it, and just the beauty is just to be flexible, just and try to support. And after listening to the semifinals, I wish I could play with everybody because they're so talented, and you see that they're enthused the way they play, and it's like if they're having a cup of tea and they're smiling, like they're playing hundreds of notes at the same time. It's like.
It's the smiling. It's the smiling that gets us every time. It's the smiling that is so peculiar to this competition. We find there is so much joy in the music making. Valentina, thank you so much for being with us. Speaking of joy, I think they're going to have a joyful experience with you as well. You just sort of exude joy in music.
We will.
Valentina Pelleggi. And we are going to show you a video now of our namesake, Van Cliburn, remembered by two people who knew him the best. Take a look.
In 1958, Cold War tensions were at their absolute height. Nuclear annihilation was a constant concern. It was against this backdrop of mutual anxiety and suspense that Texas's Van Cliburn emerged, not only winning the first Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow, but ushering in the possibility for a new generation of cultural exchange between the East and the West.
The Soviets at that time had just excelled in space and at the Olympics with gold medals, and they said, we can even do it in the arts too.
That such a competition would be won by an American, and that's what happened. Van went there. He won over the Russian public. He won over the judges. He played like an angel. I interviewed Vera Gornostayeva, who was a revered teacher at the Moscow Conservatory, and I have a picture in my book of her pointing to her heart, and that was in response to my question, what distinguished Van's playing.
And I remember perfectly well how barely my father and mother squeezed me through the crowd because there were no tickets. And I sat on my father's lap and heard Van play Tchaikovsky's first piano concert. Van Cliburn came to Russia and brought them back some fantasy which Russians lost during this so many tragedies which Russians went through.
I mean, now we refer to him as President Bush, but he was George then. I mean, he said, you know, we're opening the ballpark, and I would like to do something special. Do you have any suggestions? And I said, well, I think one of the best things you could do would be to have Van Cliburn play the national anthem. And he said, well, Van's not going to do that. He wouldn't do something like that for, you know, for a baseball game.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, to perform our national anthem on opening day at the ballpark in Arlington, please welcome Texas's own Van Cliburn, joined by the Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Maestro John Giordano.
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. And I mean, all of a sudden he stops and he gets up and he grabs the microphone. Oh, say, you know, here it is.
There was literally nobody like Van Cliburn. And nobody could play the national anthem like Van Cliburn either, really. All right, Daniel Shu, I want to talk about what it feels like in this moment, what it feels like when you're a semifinalist waiting for the finalist announcement. What did that feel like?
Oh my gosh, the anticipation, the nerves and the anxiety, probably second to only waiting for the medal announcements, you know? Also, you know, a sense of relief. The semifinals are an incredibly intense round, the longest recitals, and in my case, I did the Mozart Concerto, and it was a relief to be able to perform those, but you're still really held to this anticipation of waiting for the results, and you're really excited to get to the finals. You're really excited to work again with the orchestra, work with the conductors, and I don't know, it's a wonderful experience.
So you're sort of in limbo when you're when you're in the semis and you're waiting for the finals. It's like, wow, I'm glad all that's over, but what if I have to play this stuff coming up? I want to play this stuff, but what if I have to play this stuff?
Absolutely. It's definitely a combination of, oh wow, I got to get home and practice, and I'm so excited to get to perform this. I remember for the final round, I played the Tchaikovsky Concerto.
I remember that too.
And I remember, you know, getting to do it at this competition at the Van Cliburn's namesake. You know, it was just an incredible moment and a lot of excitement for me.
Is it hard to like sit in the theater waiting for an announcement?
Oh, yeah.
Are people trying to talk to you or not? Or did they leave you alone? Or does it sort of depend on what vibe you give off?
depends on the vibe you give off. Some people more so than others, I think.
And of course, they mean well. They want to compliment your playing
yeah.
and so forth. But
and it's really great to get to meet the people that hear your performances and experience the competition and have so much love and excitement for the competition, which is what I think makes this so special. There's another thing that you have to think about, which is you have to sit next to all your other semifinalists. So that makes it extra fun. I think you bond with them.
So were you guys talking? Were you guys talking like when you were waiting for the announcement of the finalists, and were you saying things like, "Wow, I wonder what's taking so long"? Or just
it's a knowing like, yeah, you know what I'm feeling. It's a lot of that. I don't know. When I look back on the competition, I only have positive, fond memories, even of the moments and anxiety. And if I were to go back and do it again and to tell myself, what would I do differently? I would enjoy the moment more. I would live in the moment more. I would not worry about the finals. I would not worry about what comes next, but just to enjoy such a moment with your colleagues and your friends, and to celebrate music together is really quite special.
Yeah, and it gets more special the older you get, actually. Do you remember what it was like to rehearse with the orchestra and have a really limited amount of time? Because at the Cliburn, that is even telescoped a little further. It feels a little bit more regimented, I think, for you guys.
Absolutely. It is a little bit shorter than what you might expect typically. And just because there's so many people to get through and so many concertos and so much repertoire to get through. And you're also nervous because you're working with a world-class conductor, and you get to work with this world-class orchestra, and I don't want to sound bad in the rehearsal. I want to sound good, and it's not just a performance, but it starts in the rehearsal, and that's a big part of the learning experience here for sure.
Was it out of the ordinary for you to play with an orchestra at that time in your life? It's not now, of course. Was it then?
At the time, I had a little bit of experience. I had done, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 or so. At that point, I was on the younger side of the age spectrum. I think I was 19 at the time. I had a little bit of experience, but not nearly enough. And I don't think anyone ever has enough.
No, I don't think so either. And also, if you're playing a piece for the first time, time you play it with an orchestra, it just feels like you don't know it very well. It just feels like the cellophane is not quite off of the piece.
Absolutely. No matter how much you prepare, as soon as the orchestra comes in, you do not remember the first note you play whatsoever.
It's just a different piece entirely. We're going to take a look at the 6 semifinalists and what they played tonight, beginning with Jan Schulmeister, the 16-year-old Czechian pianist who played SAINT-SAΕNS. Have a look. Jan Schulmeister giving us that second movement of the SAINT-SAΕNS. Tough to start with that.
Tough to start, but a great way to open the room.
Yeah, it really,
great way
really
to open the evening.
And sort of a genial way to open the evening. Zhonghua was next, the 14-year-old pianist from China, playing the LISZT E-flat minus the first section. Here he is. Now, LISZT, if ever there was a guy who knew his audience, I think it was Franz Liszt. He knew for whom he was writing, and he knew, I think, one doesn't want to say how to manipulate the emotions of the audience, but he knew what they wanted. He knew how to thrill an audience, I think.
Absolutely, and he was the pianist of his time, you know. He knew what he was writing for, and honestly, it's really fun music. It really just brings such an energy and joy through the room, and it's a lot of fun to play too. You can't discount that. It's a lot of fun for both sides.
It was important to him, I guess, didn't know him myself, but it was important to him to connect with the audience. The music, I think, connects with
Absolutely.
an audience in a
And
sort of kinetic way.
I like that a lot, and you know, that after all, that's what we should all be striving for. That's what we should all be trying to do, is just to connect with one another.
Right. Zhonghua connecting with the LISZT E flat. Then we heard from 15-year-old South Korean pianist Sokyoung Hong, who played some of Rachmaninov's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini. He began, of course, with the famous 18th variation, and then took us back into Paganini land. Have a look. There is Sokyoung Hong, the 15-year-old South Korean, with the Anastasia Markina Philharmonic tonight on the stage of Caruth Auditorium. Not only did he play Rachmaninoff in this part of the semifinals, but just all of the Opus 25 etudes of Chopin last night. So,
Casually.
Yeah, no big deal,
No
right?
big deal
just to
for
play
him.
all the Opus 25 etudes. It's amazing from one day to the next what can happen in a competition, right? You play this incredible program, and also just incidentally, 3 sort of barn-burning etudes by Eun-Suk Chin also.
Absolutely.
It was just an amazing, oh, I'm sorry, no, the Do-Re-Mi variations were last night. Amazing, amazing.
It just goes to show the amount of work and preparation that these kids put into this, to be able to be going from one night to another, delivering these blockbuster pieces in such a mature, way beyond their years fashion. Really just some really inspiring performances.
So in the Cliburn, did you have to ever do something one day and then the next day do something else?
You know, I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure there were ever consecutive days of performance like this. However, there certainly were people who went through finding out they were playing the next morning. You get told the night before that you advance and you have to perform the next morning. There was a bit of that.
And then also you played with a quintet also. Was there a quintet round by your
Yes.
time? Okay.
Yes.
So
there
you
was.
did.
I did the Franck Quintet with the Rentano Quartet, which remains one of my great treasured memories.
All right. We also heard tonight from Yifan Wu, a 14-year-old Chinese pianist who made a bold choice, I think, in the Chopin E minor. I think you have to be very sure of yourself to do that. It has worked as a competition piece for some people, including Murray Pariah at the Leeds when he won the Leeds. It was good enough for Murray Pariah, good enough for Yifan Wu. Here he is doing it. The Chopin E minor concerto takes about 45 minutes to tell that story if we were going to play all 3 movements. But of course, there was nobody like Chopin for knowing what sounded good on the piano, right?
Absolutely.
And for advancing the art of the piano. What do you think about him versus Franz Liszt? What is the essential difference between them, do you think?
Wow, this is a controversial question. Okay. I think they're both very successful at the drama, the story, and connecting with the audience. I think they really, really share so much of this, maybe more so than you think. I don't know that I've thought this deeply about it, but I think they really share more of that than you might imagine.
It's just a difference of personality, right? I think Chopin might have been a little bit more inward, Liszt a little bit more outward in the first part of his life. Chopin a little bit less interested in performing in big theaters, maybe. Liszt a little more interested in performing in big theaters.
Perhaps one slightly skewed towards the fanfare and the excitement, and one more about beauty and the bearing of the soul, so to speak.
Okay, all right. No, that was good. I liked
Okay,
that.
all
I was
right.
trying to listen to James in my ear, too. All right, Motan Oyama was the 5th semifinalist tonight. Again, SAINT-SAΕNS. Let's take a look. Motan Oyama, whom, as we've said, he likes a good beat. He likes a good
does.
beat. The rhythm brings him to life as it did in Petrushka last night. Our last semifinalist tonight was 14-year-old Chinese pianist Zihan Jin, who also played that same chunk of the LISZT D-flat. Here he is. The jury has voted, and they're filing back into the auditorium, so we'll be taking you down to stage at any moment, but I do think we have a minute to talk about Zihan Jin and LISZT, because he seems to be a LISZT guy. He played LISZT tonight, or yesterday sometime, I can't remember now, but he played LISZT. Also, he played the Tarantella from Venezia in Napoli and that etude. So what do you think it is that is attracting him to the music of Franz Liszt at the age of 14?
Yeah, you know.
Hard to get in somebody's brain, but.
I forgot about the Tarantella as a work, and I'm very happy he played it and kind of brought it back into memory. And, you know, I think he does the LISZT very well. And I think at that age, it's just so much fun to play, and it feels great. And to take it on the stage, it's quite wonderful. And, you know, if you're good at it, why not go for it?
And he is. We're going to stage now to hear the announcement of the 3 finalists.
And Janina Fialkowska, chairman of the competition jury. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacques Marquis.
Thank you. First, thank you, SMU, and for hosting us for the last week. And remember, we'll be at the Meyerson in 2 days. Second, thank you, audience, for being with us, and thank you for following these wonderful kids. They are kids, I'm sorry. They are young, fantastic pianists. Thank you, online audience. It's moving fast, and we're more than 450,000 views so far, and it's going up and up and up. Then we'll see that. Thank you, the jury. They've been doing a great work. The level is so high that I have complete faith in my jury, because if you feel like me, you feel they are all good. But it's why we have a great jury to help us to decide. And thank you, the jury. Please welcome the chairman of the jury, Janina Fialkowska.
I think you know by now that I won't give a big long speech, because I know everybody wants to know the result. I do want to say one thing, though, that we were all so impressed on the jury with the accompanists today. They did a fabulous job. So thank you to Anastasia Markina, Mikhail Berestnev. Thank you very, very much. Now, I'm both thrilled and very, very sad to announce. I mean, I'm thrilled for the people who are going through, and I'm terribly sad for the people who are not going through. Everybody is so good, but anyway, here are the 3 finalists. Jan Schulmeister.
Sokyoung Hong. And Yifan Wu.
Thank you, Yanina. Then to be clear, we had 900,000 views so far. I just got the last numbers. And then you're not alone. And also, then that means that we'll listen at the Meyerson at 2:30 in the afternoon. Don't forget, 2:30 on Saturday. First, Jan will play SAINT-SAΕNS 2. And Yifan will play Chopin first. And finally, we have Sokyoung RACHMANINOV Paganini. Then let's see all on Saturday, and thank you so much for the support, and see you there.
Some happy faces on the stage of Caruth Auditorium at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. 14-year-old Chinese pianist Yifan Wu, 15-year-old South Korean pianist Sokyoung Hong, and 16-year-old Chechen pianist Jan Schulmeister. These three guys will be participating in the finals with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. They're looking pretty serious right now, Daniel.
I would be celebrating. I would be jumping up and down. These kids are ready for business.
They are ready for business. And of course, they'll have to rehearse tomorrow already with the Dallas Symphony. And,
which will be incredible. It'll be really a life-changing experience, I think, for all of them.
And I hope they've met the conductor already, Valentina Pelleggi, who's really all about the joy of music. It came through so well in her interview that she did with us on the webcast this evening. I think she'll be a perfect match for this youthful energy that we see on the stage. All right, still looking pretty serious, these three guys. I think they know what's in store.
I think I saw...
You see a smile from Jan Schulmeister?
I saw a little smile from all of them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Jacques Marquis talking to the finalists. Also, who is that with Jacques? Oh, Valentina Pelleggi also talking to the three finalists. There's our Maggie Estes, sort of managing the photo shoot of these three finalists. It was beautiful what Janina Fialkowska said, I thought, about being both thrilled for the three that are advancing and sad for the three that are not.
I mean, everyone gave incredible performances, and I think everyone has so much to be proud of delivering these performances on this stage, telling their story, their art to these people is really, I mean, just incredible.
And it makes you think of 2017, probably. I guess you can't help but view it through that lens, right?
I am. I'm feeling a bit nostalgic. I'm remembering this moment. It was, you know, one of my good memories.
Great. There are more memories to make at this Cliburn Junior 2023 edition. We hope you'll join us again. On Saturday, we'll be broadcasting from the Morton H. Meyerson Symphony Center in Dallas, Texas. And you'll hear these three young fellows play with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Valentina Pelleggi. That happens at 2:30 Central Time. So Daniel and I will be with you ahead of that at 2:25. We hope you have a nice evening. I'm Buddy Bray.
I'm Daniel Hsu.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on Saturday.